So it's no secret that in 2017, the mainstream application of blockchains is investment/speculation, right? Today, several $1 billion worth of trading volume is happening in digital assets every single day. And the vast majority of that trading volume is currently happening on centralized exchanges, much like kind of the traditional financial world. But there's a category of projects that are trying to change that, called Decentralized Exchange. And today we've got leaders from 3 of the most exciting projects in the world that are working on Decentralized Exchange. So I want to start by you guys kind of talking a little bit about why you think Decentralized Exchange is important, and mentioning the unique approach that you're taking to Decentralized Exchange. And let's start with Loy, since he came in the furthest of our panelists, all the way from Singapore.
Hello everyone, my name is Loy and I'm a CEO and co-founder of Kyber Network. So I think we believe that, I believe that we all know that, decentralized exchange is important for the end users, right? So we provide, with decentralized exchanges, end users can enjoy a trustless and decentralized exchange in which they don't have to trust the owner of the exchange to keep their fund and secure their fund. But I believe that it's more important to the entire ecosystem if we can have, on-chain decentralized exchange, because, now more and more people are building smart contract and decentralized applications that require interaction with the exchange, right? Because there's a need between for the conversion from one token to a different token. And with decentralized chains, the integration is going to be easier for all the smart contract and other on-chain entities, which I believe decentralized chains cannot provide.
Great. So you're doing things on-chain, and that's different from the approach that I think Will and Thomas are taking. So Thomas, maybe why don't you talk a little bit about Omise and kind of the approach you guys are taking compared to Kyber, especially.
Hello. Hello. I'm Thomas, and I'm an advisor to the OmiseGo project, building the OMG network. I'm also an advisor to the Interchain Foundation, building a Cosmos network, and the Web3 Foundation, building Polkadot. But in my role as the OmiseGo advisor, I think perhaps I should clear up a common misconception, which is that OMG network is somehow not on-chain. Actually, it is fully on-chain. It is not on-chain directly on Ethereum because it uses the Plasma construction, which is a fully on-chain scaling solution for Ethereum or other smart contract-enabled platforms, which the OMG network was specifically designed for, actually even before the release of the Plasma white paper. So it is fully on-chain. It is just not fully on root chain. It is rooted into the Ethereum network for economic security, and essentially it scales the Ethereum mainnet. But because it uses Plasma, it will end up being on dozens of chains, or perhaps hundreds of chains, or perhaps thousands of chains, as the Plasma construction permits and requires. Sorry, there was a part of that.
No, that's super helpful. So Joseph, who created Plasma, right, the white paper, and is working on it, will be speaking later on scalability. So basically, Plasma is this blockchain on top of blockchain construction, essentially. And you guys plan to be really one of the first projects that utilizes Plasma. Is that correct?
I mean, we're working on the implementation in a production-ready way. Mm-hmm. We're helping with specification too. It's a collaborative effort. It's really a community effort. Many Plasma chains will probably be used. The OMG network will probably be the first one to get out the door, I think, for decentralized exchange. Specifically, Plasma can be used for many other use cases as well.
Got it. Okay, then maybe moving to Will to talk a little bit about 0x. I'd say of the 3 projects we're here, the one that has a live kind of on mainnet and starting to see an ecosystem build on top is 0x, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about 0x and particularly how your approach is different than Omise and Kyber?
Yeah, so the original motivation behind 0x protocol was that we noticed there's a variety of different decentralized applications that require exchange functionality, like prediction markets, decentralized fund management platforms, stablecoins. All these things just don't work unless you have decentralized exchange. And so rather than having every single one of these projects create their own kind of custom and proprietary smart contracts from scratch, bootstrap liquidity from scratch, expose the end users to a bunch of different smart contracts that have different levels of security, instead, the motivation behind 0x was to create this completely open public piece of infrastructure that anyone can plug into. Anyone can create their own decentralized exchange and charge transaction fees, and they keep 100% of the transaction fees they generate. So it's really just a piece of public infrastructure that can be used for a variety of use cases.
And so you're already seeing what you call relayers, right, built on top of the 0x kind of protocol. And I think that's an important distinction, kind of the protocol layer versus the application layer, if you will. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of the ecosystem you're seeing emerge on top?
So we deployed the 0x smart contracts to the Ethereum mainnet in August, and since then we have just kind of been shocked by the amount of development activity that we've kind of seen taking place. There's like 10 different independent developer teams that, just completely independent from us, that are building their own decentralized exchanges on top of 0x today. I think there's a couple of the teams are here actually at this event. So Radar Relay, their exchange is live on the Ethereum mainnet today. You can go and trade with a counterparty completely trustlessly at Radar Relay. Another is Paradex, and they're using 0x protocol, and their product looks really promising, and it will be out pretty soon.
So I guess by show of hands, how many people in the room have used a decentralized exchange this year? Okay, wow, that's actually way more than I expected. I would say that, right now, 99% of trading volume is still centralized exchanges today, right? I think Ether Delta on top of Ethereum is likely the largest by transaction volume, and then we're seeing relayers on top of 0x. But what do you guys think is kind of the big bottleneck to broader adoption of decentralized exchange? I think it's for kind of core crypto people, it's something that makes a lot of sense for exchange to be decentralized, but I'm curious what you guys think are kind of the major roadblocks to broader adoption.
I'm happy to jump in. Yeah, I think that just there needs to be more tooling on both sides of the exchange in terms of like market makers that can come in and provide liquidity. The tooling is, not really there yet, but it's getting there quickly. So, with 0x protocol, we have this standard relayer API and a set of tools that allow kind of anyone to create their own market maker pretty easily. But these tools are new, and it's going to take some time for people to get comfortable with them. And then on the other side, the end users of these decentralized exchanges need to be more comfortable with having custody of their own private, their own funds, using their own private keys. So being able to trade through, say, your Ledger hardware wallet will be really important. Yeah.
Do you guys have any other thoughts on that one?
So for the OMG network, the meaning of adoption may be slightly different because the target liquidity and end user of this is not just the crypto space. This is actually being built to because of the scaling potential of it, which is actually rather unique. It is actually meant to target the whole world's payments and trading needs. It can scale to millions or potentially billions of transactions per second because of Plasma. So the barrier to adoption that we think of is not how do we get crypto people to come and trade on it only. It's how do we get hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of liquidity onto it. to the point that it can be useful for Forex, and it can be useful for the kind of volumes that really make a tremendous amount of sense for reducing the margins to be hugely competitive, to outcompete the financial institutions that control these processes today. And the adoption is, well, how do we get the liquidity on in the first place? And the answer that OMG Network provides is by having current digital wallet providers, the issuers of basically digital fiat, which digital fiat is a very big deal in Asia Pacific already. 600 million people in China use it every day for buying noodles on the street with a QR scan. How do we get that money onto the blockchain? And we have solutions, and that's really what we're aiming to do.
I think that's an important distinction, right? Because the crypto to crypto decentralized exchange is what, you know, something like 0x is working on. But I think your point is that Omise, being an established company in Southeast Asia as a payment service provider, right, you have this large network. And I think the plan with Omise is to enable not just crypto to crypto decentralized exchange, but also fiat to crypto, right?
Fiat to fiat, and you know, both, all.
Yep.
And cross-chain companies.
Maybe talk a little bit about how exactly you plan to do that, given that, you know, in the U.S. at least, the main barrier there is regulation, or one of the main barriers is kind of regulation, right? You need to be a regulated money service provider to do that.
I'll give a very short answer, because this is a totally 100% public and permissionless network. I mean, OmiseGo is not building the OMG network for Omise's purposes only. I mean, that's really probably just going to be a fraction of the amount of volume and use that goes. It's being built for the entire crypto community. It's being built for beyond the crypto community. So the idea is it makes much more sense to have the businesses which are already regulated and permitted in their various jurisdictions to issue digital fiat, simply issue the digital fiat right here, using this as the back end.
Got it. Okay. So I guess shifting gears a bit, collectively, your projects combined have just this year have raised around $100 million and now have tokens that are all have an aggregate value of over $1 billion, right? And that's all this year, I think, which shows how much interest kind of globally there is for decentralized exchange, right? Maybe talk a little, since this is the Token Summit, we do want to mostly focus on the technology, but also kind of on the token, right? So talk a little bit about your respective tokens, how, you know, the token launch went, and now, and maybe a little bit about what the role of the token actually is in your respective networks. Maybe, Loy, you want to start?
So in Kyber network, we have, you know, we work with a lot of like reserve providers, or, you know, liquidity providers to provide the liquidity in our network. So the idea here is that we want to guarantee the liquidity in Kyber. So every time you want to trade, we can always like trade with you, right? Because we realize that liquidity is a major concern in decentralized exchanges. So the liquidity providers can actually earn profit from the trading spread, or the difference between the sell and the buy price for some token pair. And our token, our KNC token, the main role is you know, for the liquidity providers to pay for the trading fees. So we do not require the user to use KNC token in order to use Kyber network, because, you know, we realize that it's gonna be you know, it doesn't make sense if, you know, we ask them to use KNC in order to start trading with KNC, right? Because essentially they will have like to go to some other exchanges to acquire KNC before they can actually work with KNC, with Kyber. And our token model I think is a little bit different from other project. So I think we are one of the first to acquire the sync model, or you know, specifically, you know, we burn more and more tokens in our network, or, you know, just take them out from circulation, you know, as the adoption of the platform grows, right? So the idea here is to reduce the supply, the total supply of KNC, as more and more people use the platform. and that will potentially increase the appreciation of our token.
And how have you seen the token kind of increase the interest in your project broadly, right? I think all of these projects have done token sales, and the token has appreciated significantly even since the token sale, and it seems like it's been a really kind of effective way to just generate more interest and an ecosystem around the project. So have you seen that with Kyber?
Exactly. So Kyber have been working with a few partners who have like millions of users, right? So we recently partnered with Wax Token. They have, I think, they have like millions of users in trading game items in their platform, and we also partner with Greco. They have like 20 million users in their live streaming platform. So with more, we are trying to build more and more partnership with all the partners who can essentially bring more traffic to our platform later on, and people see that that effect in creating the traffic for the platform later, and the appreciation of the token also increases.
Got it. So Thomas, maybe you could talk a little bit about the OMG, which is a great acronym. Why don't you talk a little bit about the OMG token?
Okay, so the OMG token was sold in a sale that raised $25 million this summer, and now the market cap is, I think, around 1 billion, maybe a little bit over or a little bit under. It goes up and down. So there was no marketing done. Nobody was paid. Even though many companies have solicited this, and this is a conscious decision, because we think that as a token project, we are taking community money to build a community good. And what happens with token trading is between the people that are trading the token and the places they go and trade it. So for this reason, unlike many other high-profile projects, we have not gotten involved with any exchanges for listing. I think that the fairly large rise in interest in the project since the launch, as reflected in the rise in market cap of couple orders of magnitude, comes from how this is a public network, and this is very much a community project, and it's an exploration of cutting-edge technology, which can probably really be used in a commercially valuable development of infrastructure that can facilitate mainstream payments. And so that's a lot of value. And so, $1 billion market cap is possibly not that significant. But more importantly, because the token itself is a staking token, kind of similar to, if you know about security deposits that are used for slasher-style proof of stake. It's a proof-of-stake network that is rooted into the Ethereum mainnet. And owning the token gives people the ability, and it gives anybody the ability, in possibly a fairly regressive way, non-regressive way, to put their capital into running validators for the network, no fancy hardware required. And I think that kind of possibility of being part of the operation of such a potentially groundbreaking type of financial network, which may potentially bring fiat and crypto together finally, is what makes people interested. And partly somehow the stars just aligned for some reason, and I don't know why.
Very cool. And how about you, Will? Talk a little bit about the experience kind of launching the 0x token, and maybe a little bit about kind of the mechanics of the token as well.
Yeah. So The purpose for the 0x token, first and foremost, is that it's a governance token. And the reason why you need a governance token when you're building kind of public infrastructure is that there's a variety of people that are building on top of this infrastructure. They all benefit from sort of the network effects of building on top of that same infrastructure, but they all have varied interests and different incentives. They might want the protocol to be kind of modified to go in different directions over time. And if there isn't a way of having governance over the upgrade process, then you'll end up kind of fracturing off. Different relayers will go in different directions, forking the protocol, and then sort of all of the benefits that you get from building on top of a shared standard kind of dissipate. So yeah, first and foremost, 0x token is a governance token. It's also required to pay transaction fees to relayers. Relayers can charge whatever fees they want. They can charge 0 fees if they want. But the idea is that if the end users of the protocol are required to have a balance of these tokens in order to interact with relayers, this will align the interests of the relayers with the end users and create sort of better incentives for the governance process. Yeah. In our token sale, it was really important to us to have a wide distribution. So there are a variety of token sales that kind of had like a first come, first serve process, where 99% or 90% of the tokens were scooped up by like 5 people. And, you know, we kind of view the token, first of all, it's a governance token, but we also view tokens as being kind of like gasoline for network effects and building a community. So it was really important to us to have as wide of a distribution as we could possibly get. So in our token sale, we had a registration process, and we kind of equally divided up the token allocation across every single person that participated. We didn't give preferential treatment to any VCs or any hedge funds or anything like that. It doesn't matter who you are; you get the same amount of tokens. If you can use it to trade, you can use it to participate in governance. So that was our approach.
Cool. So we've got around 5 minutes left. I want to leave some time potentially for a few questions from the audience. But why don't you guys talk a little bit about kind of the roadmap for 2018 and specifically, like, what do you guys think are going to be some major catalysts over the next 12 to 18 months that really increase adoption of decentralized exchange?
So for Kyber, recently we are trying to partner with a lot of popular wallets and also platforms, so that the users can just trade with Kyber without leaving their wallet, without going to some other third-party website. So they can just trade from their own software wallet or hardware wallet. So that will give them the optimal confidence when they trade with Kyber. So we are going to launch our platform on the mainnet in 2 months from now, in Feb 2018. And after the mainnet launch, we'll be focusing on, first of all, improving the usability of the platform, trying to integrate with more and more wallets and platforms. And secondly, trying to work with other interchain protocols so that we can allow people to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, and many other coins on Ethereum.
I think that's actually an interesting thing that we haven't really talked about is this idea of kind of ERC20 focused decentralized exchange versus true cross-chain communication, because the reality is that I think of the top 25 tokens right now by both market value and exchange volume, I think 24 of them are non-ERC20, right? And Omise is, I think, the one that is ERC20. So maybe, I don't know, Thomas, you want to talk a little bit about your view on kind of cross-chain versus just ERC20 moving forward?
So the OMG token may be top 20 ERC, but we think that OMG itself is more for staking and less for use as currency or store of value, even though store of value use case is very important for a staking token. But I think that in terms of roadmap, we are working to get Plasma done, working with Joseph and Vitalik to help specify it also, because that work has not anywhere even close to been completed yet. Also, at the same time, we are working on deploying an earlier version of the network, working with the Tendermint team for this. So cross-chain compatibility is very important, but it is also hard to do. It is risky because many stores of value are at risk using cross-chain constructions. If something goes wrong, it possibly goes wrong in a bigger way. So we have to be very careful about this. And our focus actually is on fiat token. And I think that this is something that is less risky to do in that fiat tokens can be ERC20s, can be native tokens to whatever network is performing the exchange. So we, of course, are also working with many fairly large partners, business, financial institution, and nation state. So partner is not the right word, actually, because it's a totally public network. No partnership needs to be done. It's just, can you see the incentive that you might have to deploy fiat tokens on this network? Please come in and go ahead. And this is something that actually it would be very nice if anybody else wanted to get involved in, because the whole community benefits, and this is an entirely public network.
Cool. So, Will, maybe you want to talk briefly about kind of roadmap as well as your view on kind of ERC20 versus cross-chain stuff, and if maybe cross-chain is on the roadmap, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, so I think that decentralized exchange, using one blockchain as sort of your settlement layer is a very different problem from doing sort of inter-blockchain, connecting different blockchains, moving assets across blockchains. And I think that they should be decoupled. So there are really smart teams that are already working on cross-blockchain interoperability. So Polkadot, Cosmos, there's a few others. Loy's worked on Peace Relay. And I think that what we'll end up seeing is that, one of these solutions is going to end up working, and Bitcoins and Litecoins and whatever coins are going to end up being able to be moved onto the Ethereum blockchain. And then they'll be able to be traded using protocols like 0x or using Kyber. And so, yeah, I really pretty strongly feel like these are two different problems, and there's smart people working on both of them separately. As far as like our roadmap for 2018, we have quite a few improvements to 0x protocol. Version 2, I think, is going to be significantly improved over our current version. We want to support things like non-fungible tokens, so digital collectibles like crypto cats and stuff like that. It may sound like a little silly now, but I think in the next few years we'll see real use cases like real estate or loyalty points, airline miles, video game items, all sorts of things like that.
And you guys have worked a little bit on the ERC 721 standard, right, for non-fungible assets, which most of you guys have likely heard about ERC 20, which is really the standard for tokens and kind of part of what's fueled the token boom this year. And maybe talk a little bit about the ERC 721 standard.
Yeah, so I mean, you can, in order to build really complex systems of smart contracts, you need to start out with simple building blocks that are highly standardized and that can be hooked together and kind of assembled. And so that's our approach to 0x protocol. That's the same approach that's used for establishing these token standards like ERC20 and ERC 721. So non-fungible tokens, they're represented in sort of a different way than fungible tokens because they're fundamentally different assets. But the idea is that if we can establish a really strong standard early on, then people can build these tokens into more complex systems.
Cool. Well, we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. I wish we had more time to chat about this stuff, but really appreciate you guys coming in.
Thanks.